First, there is a growing transnational movement for drug policy reform. But a transnational movement for drug policy reform cannot succeed as a transnational movement. It can only succeed as a collective of essentially nationalist movements, each proceeding forward within their own state, within their own country, yet driven by that common vision and by a desire to strategize and move forward together. We can gather here from the United States and Mexico and Bolivia and Peru and Argentina and Colombia and other countries, and we can unite in the view that prohibition is the fundamental evil. But then we go home. And when I go home, I will fight for the end of the war on drugs and the end of prohibition in the United States, because first and foremost, it is bad for America. It's bad for my country. And when some of you go back to Bolivia, you will fight first and foremost because drug prohibition in your country and around the world is bad for Bolivia. And those of you in Mexico, it is bad for Mexico. And those of you in Colombia, it is bad for Colombia. In America, I am telling my allies, this may be the time more than ever before when drug policy reform must show that it is fighting for the values of the United States, the positive values of the United States, not the values being advanced by the government in power today. Drug reform can only succeed in the United States if it is perceived and if it is in fact consistent with the fundamental ideals of my country and of our Constitution and of our Declaration of Independence and of what is best in my country, not as a foreign import. And the same will be true in Mexico, of saying that this is about what is good for Mexico and what is consistent for the values of Mexico, and the same elsewhere. Now, what is that common vision apart from the uniting in opposition to prohibition? I think there's a common principle that when you sift through all the details, underlies our common struggle. And that is the belief that people, that human beings, should not be punished for what they choose to put into their body. That human beings should not be punished, should not be discriminated against, should not be discriminated among, based upon what they choose to put into their bodies. I think that is the fundamental underlying principle that unites all of us. Now, that principle goes hand in hand with another principle, which is the principle of individual responsibility, and over here the principle of compassion for those who suffer and struggle, regardless of what the policy may be. It is the fundamental element of freedom, and it is understanding that our struggle, the struggle against prohibition, is fundamentally a struggle for freedom, hand in hand with hand in hand with understanding the principles of individual responsibility and compassion at all levels. It is the right of the coca chewer in Bolivia and Peru to chew what he or she chooses as part of their tradition, and the right of any human being to consume that plant or the product of that plant, and only to be punished if they cause harm to their fellow human beings, not because they have consumed that in the first place. The adoption of that principle, and I have to say it's an honor to know that I'm speaking before Carlos Gaviria, the judge from the Supreme Court of Colombia, who some years ago, in a decision of that court, went further in embracing this fundamental principle than any court anywhere else in the world. That principle, fighting for that core principle, if that principle becomes embedded in our laws and in our popular culture, then the war on drugs no longer can survive, because what we have attained is to gut the fundamental core on which it thrives. So, thank you for listening to me. Please continue to struggle. Do not despair. It will be long and hard. Thank you very much.